In 1985, Back to the Future remains one of the most iconic time travel films ever made, a story that defined an entire generation. But behind the scenes, the cast's real journeys didn't stay in the past. Some were pulled into addiction, some were hit by devastating illness, and some quietly vanished from Hollywood without explanation. Today, we uncover what really happened to them, and you won't even recognize who they became. Wendie Jo Sperber as Linda McFly. In Back to the Future, Linda McFly appears as the sharp-tongued older sister whose mix of attitude, humor, and hidden affection adds a realistic family tension around Marty's chaotic life. Born on September 15, 1958, Sperber was 27 years old when she played the role. It became one of her most memorable performances. Wendie Jo Sperber passed away on November 29, 2005, at the age of 47 in Los Angeles after a long battle with breast cancer. She was cremated following her death, and her ashes were kept privately by her family. Her passing marked the end of a courageous fight that had lasted nearly a decade after her initial diagnosis in 1997. Her life before her passing was defined by both comedic success and extraordinary resilience. Known for her work in Bosom Buddies alongside Tom Hanks and films like I Want to Hold Your Hand, she built a reputation as one of the most energetic comedic actresses of her generation. After being diagnosed with cancer, she endured years of aggressive treatments while continuing to work whenever possible, even as her health declined. During this period, she founded the We Spark Cancer Support Center, creating a space to help other patients cope with emotional and psychological struggles. That mission became one of her most meaningful legacies, reflecting her desire to turn personal pain into support for others. Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly. In Back to the Future, Marty McFly is the teenage son who suddenly finds himself forced to navigate time travel chaos while trying to protect his family's future. Born on June 9, 1961, Fox was 24 years old when he played this role in 1985. It instantly turned him into a global icon, defining one of the most beloved science fiction characters in film history. In 2026, Michael J. Fox is 64 years old and living with his wife Tracy Pollan and their 4 children. After retiring from acting in 2020 due to Parkinson's disease, which was diagnosed in 1991, his life has been shaped by the long progression of the condition. By 2026, the illness has significantly affected his movement and speech, but he continues to face it with remarkable strength and dignity, supported closely by his family. What gradually changed his life was not only the diagnosis itself, but the way he rebuilt his entire identity around it. As his condition progressed, he moved away from acting and devoted himself fully to advocacy, turning personal struggle into a global mission. The foundation he built became one of the most influential forces in medical research, raising billions for Parkinson's awareness and treatment development. Even as his physical world became smaller, his impact expanded far beyond Hollywood. Lea Thompson as Lorraine Baines. Lorraine Baines is introduced as the mother whose life changes across timelines in unexpected ways, shifting from a shy teenage girl into a strong maternal figure shaped by altered destiny. Born on May 31, 1961, Thompson was 24 years old when she played Lorraine. The role became one of her most defining performances, showing her range across comedy, emotion, and dramatic transformation. In 2026, Lea Thompson is 64 years old and continues to work steadily in the industry while also directing television projects. She has built a respected second career behind the camera, contributing to major TV franchises while maintaining a balanced life outside Hollywood pressure. Her personal world remains stable, built around a long marriage to director Howard Deutsch and their 2 daughters, Madeline and Zoe Deutsch, both active in acting. As she moved deeper into middle age, the shifting landscape of Hollywood brought quieter challenges that were not immediately visible to the public. Opportunities for women of her generation became less frequent, and that gradual reduction of roles created a sense of uncertainty and creative limitation. At times, this transition led to emotional strain, including periods of mild depression as she adjusted to changing industry expectations. Instead of stepping away, she slowly redirected her focus toward directing, discovering a new form of artistic control that allowed her to stay connected to storytelling. Over time, Lorraine Baines remained her most iconic role, but her real journey became defined by reinvention, endurance, and the ability to evolve beyond what Hollywood originally expected of her. Christopher Lloyd as Dr. Emmett Brown, Doc Brown. The eccentric scientist known as Dr. Emmett Brown is the unpredictable father figure of the story, a man whose obsession with invention turns ordinary reality into dangerous and brilliant experiments. Born on October 22, 1938, Lloyd was 47 years old when he portrayed Doc Brown, and the role became one of the most iconic performances in science fiction cinema. In 2026, Christopher Lloyd is 87 years old and still living, occasionally appearing in voice roles and fan events such as Comic-Con. Although age has slowed his physical presence, he remains mentally sharp and continues to be celebrated by audiences across multiple generations. His life today is quieter, shaped more by selective appearances than constant Hollywood activity. Over the years, his journey outside the screen has been marked by moments that reshaped his sense of stability and perspective. After experiencing multiple divorces and long-term emotional strain, his life took a major turn in 2008 when a wildfire destroyed his home in California, erasing personal memories and possessions built over decades. That loss became a quiet turning point, shifting his focus away from material attachment and toward emotional grounding. Today, his real story is about endurance, a life that moved through chaos, loss, and finally into a more peaceful rhythm. James Tolkan as Mr. Strickland. Few characters in Back to the Future are as instantly intimidating as Mr. Strickland, the strict authority figure whose commanding presence turns discipline into fear for every student who crosses his path. Born on June 20th, 1931, Tolkan was 54 years old when he portrayed Strickland, and the role became one of his defining performances, cementing his reputation as Hollywood's ultimate no-nonsense authority character. James Tolkan passed away on February 11, 2026, at the age of 94 in New York, where he spent his final years living quietly with his wife, Claudia Wells. His death was caused by complications from advanced heart failure after a long period of declining health, and he was laid to rest in a private family ceremony, marking the end of a long and respected acting career. Throughout his life, Tolkan built a career centered almost entirely on authoritative roles, portraying principals, officers, and commanding figures whose intensity left a lasting impression on audiences. While this consistency made him memorable, it also confined him to a narrow typecasting path that limited his opportunities in later years. As time passed, he gradually withdrew from acting and lived a quieter life in New York, focusing on health and family while remaining proud of his legacy. Even after his death, fans continued to recognize him instantly as Mr. Strickland. Thomas F. Wilson as Biff Tannen. A school bully who dominates every scene with aggression and unpredictable humor, Biff Tannen stands as one of cinema's most memorable antagonists, embodying arrogance, intimidation, and chaotic energy across multiple timelines. Born on April 15, 1959, Wilson was 26 years old when his role instantly became a defining point in his career. In 2026, Thomas F. Wilson is 67 years old and living a stable life with his wife Caroline Thomas, whom he married in 1985 along with their 4 children. He continues to work across different creative fields, including voice acting, stand-up comedy, music, and painting, building a diverse artistic identity that extends far beyond his most famous role. His life today is centered on family stability and creative freedom rather than mainstream Hollywood visibility. The impact of playing Biff Tannen, however, shaped much of his public life in unexpected ways that lasted for decades. Audiences often blurred the line between character and actor, treating him as if he shared the same personality as his on-screen bully. This typecasting limited his access to serious dramatic roles, forcing him to navigate career. Eventually, instead of resisting the image, he embraced it through comedy, art, and public appearances, turning what once felt like a burden into part of his identity. Today, his real story is defined by acceptance, reinvention, and learning how to transform a single role into a lifelong creative foundation. Marc McClure as Dave McFly. Growing up in the shadow of a time-traveling younger brother, Dave McFly represents the overlooked older sibling whose life quietly reflects the ordinary struggles of the McFly household. Born on March 31, 1957, McClure was 28 years old when he played Dave in 1985, and the role secured his place as a familiar supporting face across major 1980s film franchises. In 2026, Marc McClure is 69 years old and living a quiet life in California with his family. He occasionally appears at fan conventions and nostalgic film events, reconnecting with audiences who still remember his work from both Back to the Future and the Superman series. His current lifestyle is far removed from Hollywood's peak spotlight, focusing instead on privacy and occasional appearances that support his later years. After his peak in the 1980s, his career gradually moved away from mainstream visibility as film opportunities became more limited and supporting roles replaced leading studio attention. This transition created a long period of professional uncertainty. Rather than chasing former fame, he slowly stepped back from active Hollywood participation, choosing stability over constant reinvention. Over time, his real journey became one of quiet adaptation, acceptance of fading spotlight, and building a peaceful life beyond the industry's center. Crispin Glover as George McFly. There is a version of Back to the Future where George McFly begins as a quiet, overlooked father whose fear of life defines his place in the family, only to slowly transform into someone capable of standing up and changing his own destiny. Born on April 20, 1964, Glover was 21 years old when he played this role. This character's emotional arc became one of the most unforgettable foundations of the trilogy. In 2026, Crispin Glover is 62 years old and living a secluded life in the Czech Republic, far away from the Hollywood system. He has never married, choosing isolation as a natural extension of his highly individual and unconventional lifestyle. His work today is focused on experimental filmmaking, writing, and art projects that exist outside mainstream studio structures, allowing him complete creative independence. What permanently changed his relationship with Hollywood was not success, but conflict that emerged during the sequel era. A dispute over salary and creative control escalated into a legal battle with Universal after he refused to return under the same conditions, leading to his character being recreated using prosthetics and another actor. The case eventually became a landmark moment in Hollywood regarding the use of actor likeness, but it also branded him as difficult to work with, pushing him further away from major studio productions. Over time, instead of trying to re-enter the system, he embraced complete artistic separation, building a career defined by surrealism and independence. Today, George McFly remains his most recognizable role, but his real identity is shaped by defiance, solitude, and a lifelong rejection of Hollywood conformity. Claudia Wells as Jennifer Parker. Jennifer Parker is the steady girlfriend who grounds Marty McFly's chaotic life, offering emotional stability in a story driven by time travel and unpredictable change. Born on July 5, 1966, Wells was 19 years old when she played Jennifer, and although her appearance was limited to the first film, the role became a lasting emotional anchor within the franchise. In 2026, Claudia Wells is 59 years old and living a stable life in California, where she runs a high-end men's fashion store while occasionally taking part in independent film projects. She is married and has a son named Sebastian, and her daily life is now centered on family, business, and personal balance rather than the entertainment industry. Her decision to step away from Hollywood early created a completely different life path compared to many of her co-stars. That turning point came at a moment when her career was beginning to rise, but her personal life was suddenly disrupted by a devastating family crisis. Her mother was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer, forcing her to leave acting entirely in order to become her primary caregiver during the final stage of illness. The loss that followed left her emotionally shaken and created a long period of grief that reshaped how she viewed success, opportunity, and timing. For years afterward, she lived with the quiet weight of what might have been, balancing regret with the need to rebuild a stable life outside Hollywood. Over time, she found healing not through returning to fame, but through building a new identity in business and family life. Today, her real journey is defined by sacrifice, emotional recovery, and the strength to start over on her own terms. Frances Lee McCain as Stella Baines. Stella Baines is the kind of character whose presence reflects stability, discipline, and the quiet strength of a family trying to hold itself together through generational change. Born on July 28, 1944, McCain was 41 years old when she played Stella in 1985, and although she appeared only in the first film, her performance became a memorable part of the film's emotional foundation. In 2026, Frances Lee McCain is 81 years old and still alive, living a quiet life in the San Francisco Bay Area. She chose to focus on writing, psychology, and occasional community work. Despite her age, she remains mentally active and continues to contribute through small-scale academic and creative projects, maintaining a calm and independent lifestyle. Over the years, her life has gradually shifted away from Hollywood and toward intellectual and therapeutic work. After building a strong acting career in the 1980s with roles in films like Gremlins and Stand By Me, she later returned to school and earned a master's degree in psychology, redirecting her focus toward understanding human behavior and emotional health. In her later years, she developed a condition of chronic arthritis, which limits her mobility but does not affect her engagement with writing and advisory work. Instead of stepping fully into retirement, she chose a quieter form of contribution through counseling and education for older adults. Today, Stella Baines remains a small but recognizable part of her legacy. George DiCenzo as Sam Baines' authority in the Baines household comes through Sam Baines, the grandfather in Back to the Future, whose strict presence and sharp judgment reflect an older generation that values discipline over comfort. Born on February 21, 1940, DiCenzo was 45 years old when his role added to his long-standing reputation as a powerful character actor capable of grounding intense dramatic scenes. George DiCenzo passed away on August 9, 2010, at the age of 70 in Pennsylvania due to complications from chronic respiratory disease. He was laid to rest privately after years of declining health marked by repeated hospital stays and severe breathing difficulties in his final years. His career before that point was built on strong dramatic credibility and a deep connection to acting education as much as performance. A defining highlight was his acclaimed role in Helter Skelter, 1976, where he portrayed Vincent Bugliosi in a performance. Alongside his acting work, he dedicated much of his life to teaching acting in New York and Los Angeles, shaping younger generations of performers. As his health worsened due to chronic respiratory illness, his final years became increasingly limited by physical weakness, yet he remained involved in the craft whenever possible. Sam Baines remains a supporting but memorable role in his film legacy. Casey Siemaszko as 3D. A loud, mischievous member of Biff's gang who follows orders more than he questions them, 3D represents the kind of teenage troublemaker who thrives in chaos but rarely steps out of someone else's shadow. Born on March 17, 1961, Siemaszko was 24 years old when he played 3D. The role became one of his early stepping stones into a long but often overlooked acting career. In 2026, Casey Siemaszko is 65 years old and still alive, living a very private life away from Hollywood's spotlight. These days, he occasionally takes on small television guest roles or voiceover work, mainly in audiobooks, as a way to stay creatively active while maintaining financial stability. As the years passed, the momentum he once had in the 1980s gradually faded as new generations of actors took center stage in Hollywood. Despite appearing in respected films like Stand By Me and Young Guns, he often found himself pushed towards smaller roles. This gradual shift created a long period of professional uncertainty. Over time, he adapted by stepping away from the pressure of major productions and focusing instead on quieter, more flexible work in television and narration. Today, his real journey is defined by persistence, privacy, and a long career lived mostly outside the spotlight. J.J. Cohen as Skinhead. Inside Biff Tannen's gang, Skinhead appears as one of the loudest and most aggressive members, a background presence whose attitude reinforces the tension and social hierarchy of Hill Valley's teenage world. Born on November 22, 1965, Cohen was 20 years old when he played Skinhead, and the role became his most recognizable screen appearance across the trilogy despite its supporting nature. In 2026, J.J. Cohen is 60 years old and living a quiet, private life in the United States, far removed from the Hollywood system. He is married and maintains a stable lifestyle, occasionally appearing at nostalgic fan events and anniversary screenings connected to Back to the Future. The shift away from acting did not happen suddenly, but developed through years of limited opportunities and typecasting. Although he appeared in several 1980s productions, his roles were consistently small and rarely allowed him to move beyond background or supporting characters. As the industry evolved, those limitations became more pronounced, and financial pressure combined with lack of career growth eventually pushed him to leave professional acting behind. He later moved into ordinary work outside Hollywood, choosing stability over uncertainty in the entertainment world. Today, Skinhead remains the role people remember most, but his real journey is defined by quiet transition and a life built far away from the spotlight. Billy Zane as Match. A stylish and confident member of Biff's gang in Back to the Future, Match is one of those supporting characters who adds attitude and presence to every scene without ever stepping into the spotlight of the main story. Born on February 24, 1966, Zane was 19 years old when he played Match. Although the role was small, it marked an early appearance in what would become a highly recognizable Hollywood career. In 2026, Billy Zane is 60 years old and living a balanced life between acting, business, and art. He remains active through independent film projects while also dedicating significant time to painting and running his own production ventures. He has been married and experienced multiple high-profile relationships over the years, and today he is in a stable long-term relationship with Candace Neal, with whom he shares 2 daughters, Ava and Gia. His career after Back to the Future took a dramatic turn when he rose to global fame as the villain Cal Hockley in Titanic, 1997, a performance that brought him international recognition and an Oscar-related nomination. However, that success also came with an unintended consequence. He became heavily typecast as a villain in Hollywood, limiting his access to leading heroic roles. Over time, this shift pushed him toward lower-budget productions. Instead of stepping away entirely, he gradually redirected his energy into visual art and independent filmmaking, where he could maintain full creative control. Today, his real legacy is defined by reinvention, artistic independence, and resilience in the face of typecasting. Norman Alden as Lou is the kind of diner owner whose quiet kindness and everyday realism help ground the film's larger-than-life time travel chaos. Born on September 13, 1924, Alden was 61 years old when he played Lou. Even in a brief appearance, he carried the depth of a veteran actor whose career had already spanned decades of Hollywood history. Norman Alden passed away on July 27, 2012, at the age of 87 in Los Angeles, where he spent his final years in a care facility. His death was due to natural causes related to old age after a long period of gradual physical decline. He was laid to rest privately, closing the final chapter of a career that quietly shaped generations of television and film audiences. Over the course of his life, Alden built an extensive and versatile acting career that stretched across nearly half a century. He became familiar to audiences through projects like I Never Promised You a Rose Garden and his voice work as Aquaman in the Super Friends animated series. In his later years, he gradually stepped away from acting as his health weakened, spending more time in retirement and focusing on a quieter lifestyle with his wife, Sharon Arthur. As age took its toll, he withdrew completely from the industry, living out his final years away from the screen. Today, Alden's real legacy reflects the quiet dignity of a long career built on consistency, humility, and timeless supporting performances. Elsa Raven as the Clock Tower Lady. A brief moment in Back to the Future turns into history when a determined woman in Hill Valley desperately waves a flyer and cries out, "Save the Clock Tower!" Born Elsa Rabinowitz on September 21, 1929, Raven was 56 years old when she played the Clock Tower Lady in 1985. Although her screen time was short, the scene became one of the most important turning points in the entire film's timeline. In 2020, Elsa Raven passed away at the age of 91 in Los Angeles due to natural causes. She was laid to rest privately after her death, with her ashes returned to her family, marking a quiet and peaceful farewell to a long life in acting. Beyond that single iconic line, Raven built a steady career as a respected character actress across television and film. She appeared in popular series such as Seinfeld, Amen, and Wise Guy, and later delivered a memorable performance in Titanic, 1997, as Ida Strauss, the devoted wife who refused to leave her husband during the sinking. Known for her strong voice and emotional presence even in small roles, she became one of those rare actors whose impact far exceeded screen time. Living a private and devout life, she remained away from Hollywood's spotlight in her later years. Today, she is remembered not for leading roles, but for unforgettable moments, especially that one urgent plea that helped change the fate of Back to the Future. So after revisiting Back to the Future, 1985, we've seen how dramatically time has reshaped every face behind this iconic film. From legendary success stories to quiet retirements and heartbreaking losses, their real lives went far beyond anything we saw on screen. Which transformation surprised you the most after all these years? If you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more cast updates where we reveal what really happened to the stars you thought you knew.